My name is Bob Rinehart, and I am coming to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand. This is an intimate session with César Cisneros-Puebla.
Thank you.
Good morning from New Zealand. Good afternoon to everyone else who's on Zoom at this point, I think. César, it's a privilege.
No, the privilege is for me. I'm just saying, I'm just honored because of this invitation, no?
Yes. Well, let me ask you the first question that I have. The question is, if you could briefly outline the trajectory of your work in autoethnography, ethnography, and qualitative research.
Oh, thank you. Big questions. Let me try in this way. In the 70s, I studied psychology and the schools, at least in Latin America in those days, were dominated by behaviorism. It was interesting because I come from a liberal family that allowed me to live outside, for instance, of religious dogmas. Although my parents were not politically active, my education allowed me to be aware of social protest movements. When I was really a kid, no, in such a way that when I started studying the university, although the mainstream was very positivist and very quantitative, my inclination towards studying from leftist thought led me to connect mainly with anthropologists and sociologists interested in poverty, community, rituals, culture. In those years, then it was very important for me and my generation, I think, to study Paulo Freire, Malinowski, among others, no, and practice, for instance, the very militant sociology that was proposed in those days by Falsborda, a Colombian sociologist who was developing as participatory action research. Remember, I mean, at least in the 70s in Latin America, think in America, I mean, the Vietnam War, all the protests because of the 68 year and the student rebellion. Even in 68, I was just 10 years old, but it was very important for me, all those movements. Jan Morse, I remember once Jan Morse told me that those of us who study social or human science in the 70s became qualitative thinkers against the grain of what they taught in the university. I mean, something like we were fighting against the dominant paradigm of the teaching in the universities, right? During my master studies in sociology, let me tell you that I was, I mean, I'm very proud of all my education was in Mexico. I never came to be an international student. So during my master studies in sociology, ethnographic methods were already integrated into my personal development. But I must to confess that during my doctoral studies in political science, when I discovered the book, The Discovery of Grounded Theory by Glasser and Strauss, and I read in it, that book um, was a 180 degrees turn in my thinking. It was important for me when I found that book in that library. And for me, it was interesting because nobody in my university were aware about that book. And to be honest, I was the only person in my university in all the departments, sociology, political science, psychology, who was talking about that book, about the discovery of grounded theory, 70s. But without a doubt, William Isaac Thomas, sorry, Mead, Cooley, and the other founding fathers of the symbolic interactionism tradition and the so-called Chicago School have been a great influence on my way of seeing everything. And this is very important for me, Bob, because when you define yourself as an interactionist, in the way that I did, no, now when I'm thinking, when I defined myself 30 years ago, it was like a heresy in the Spanish-speaking world. I was very strained, no, for all the academic media, no, when people.
It was in the English-speaking world as well. You know, it was still heresy there, but you're anticipating some of my questions. You've already named so many people who had profound influence on you.
Okay,
and
okay.
Also the Glaser and Strauss as being an epiphanic kind of moment for you, an aha moment.
Yeah,
So
really.
go on.
Oh, but it's like but I remember to be honest, in the 90s when I discovered that book, I was like a guy who was looking for all the people who were studying with Anselm Strauss. And I remember when he passed away, 1 year after, I was trying to do academic session in my university to honor it, all the contribution that Anselm prepare for us. But you know what happened? Nobody knows about him in my university. I remember, and I was looking for other guys in other universities. And when I said, okay, Anselm Strauss passed away in September last year, and I want to do something. And people said, oh, who is Anselm? Are you talking about Claude Lévi-Strauss? No, I'm talking about Anselm Strauss, I remember. Okay, but let's move that. I remember, that reading and learning from the discussion around the methodological debates between grounded theory and ethnography have also been a great incentive for me. No, I believe, I'm not sure, Caroline, but I think that it was in 2004 that research talk our friend Ray Mayera organized a summer intensive course in Long Island, and was in that year 2004 when I attend to a 3 days workshop on autoethnography. And that was what for me was amazing. I mean, I can talk later about this influence, but I think, Bob, that if we can move to your other questions, but I need to say that, like much of my research work has been done in Latin America, and it is from that experience that I can talk about my own career, right? Just in the way that I just say, like my degree, my master, and my PhD, my PhD in political science was very formed in the Mexican universities. No, if I have to talk about these epiphanies or my epiphanic moments or the eureka kind of turning points that you that you have in mind. Um, I can I can s- I can say that in 1999, I mean in 1999, on the occasion of the worldwide commemoration of Alfred Schutz' birth, I began a long-lasting relation of more than 20 years with the qualitative researchers community of the German-speaking world. I had been publishing about Schutz phenomenology in my language in those days. In fact, in 2000, in the year 2000, the online journal that I'm sure that all of you have read, the online Forum of Qualitative Social Research, Forum Qualitative Social Forschung in German, no? And in 2000 was published in the first time, no? And I remember that that journal start in bilingual format. I mean, the decision of Katja Murk, the main editor, and the other guys was to have a online journal, free online journal, just in bilingual way, German and English. But because of the commemoration that we had 1 year before in 1999, and my communication about my papers about Alfred Schutz were translated from Spanish to German, or people was interested of what I was doing. I got an invitation to prepare an article, no, on what was happening on qualitative research in Latin America. Finally, I decided to prepare a paper on qualitative research in Mexico, and was very funny because I remember that Katja offered me, please, Cesar, if you can send us your paper in English, and the paper is accepted, that it was, they said, we can translate to German. In those days, I was very I was having a personal connection to a German lady who speaks Spanish, and I asked to her of something like, okay, we can prepare the German version of this English paper after the paper was accepted. And this good friend of mine said, okay, we can prepare the German version. You know what I did? I asked Katja Moore, hey, lady, I can send you the English and the German version of my paper on condition that you can also publish the Spanish version. And the answer was something like, no, 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 that's not possible because we are not thinking on publish in Spanish. But I said, okay, it's like, this is my condition. I want to, and I'm able to prepare the German version of the paper, but please publish also in Spanish. After that was very important because I proposed to the FQS editorial committee to get that journal also in Spanish. And if I have to think about how has been my evolution, my personal evolution, or even my turning points, I think that my collaboration with a large German community dedicated to qualitative research uh, can be considered my first turning point. No, since nothing was the same afterwards, really. But also in 2001, I began a sabbatical period of 2 years at the International Institute of Qualitative Methodology that in those days was leading by Jan Morse, and also was a very radical change on my mind because the IIQM library was a treasure for me. I mean, before that, I mean, I was learning English, I was studying English, and then I remember that all my day long I was in the library reading everything. I read first first time in Edmonton, Caroline Ellis papers, Caroline Ellis book. Max van Manen was very new for me. I remember even when I met Max van Manen, a Canadian phenomenologist guy that I'm sure that you know or you have read something from him. I was surprised because for me phenomenology legacy was linked to Germany, but for him was very connected to France. Something like, okay, I mean, I would like to discuss about phenomenology because Alfred Schutz, but he was more connected to Bergson, to Sartre, no, to Merleau-Ponty and another phenomenologist. But anyway, it was very important to me. When I met Arthur Frank was also like, oh, look at this Canadian guy. Or probably you remember another good friend of us who passed away a couple of years ago, Mike Egar. Mike Egar was for me also a very important friend. No, and I think that a second turning point in my life is with a doubt linked to my experience in International Institute for Qualitative Methodology. But because of the leadership of Jan Morse, our dear Janice Morse, I could get involved in close relationship for instance, to Ray Mayera, to Julie Corbin, to Kathy Sharmas. I met Norman Densing there, and it was really amazing to me when I heard first time the voice of 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 Norman, and I mean, I have wonderful memories of all of this experience. But thinking on autoethnography, uh, I like to remember, Bob, my workshop with Caroline. It was fantastic. I mean, I know that Caroline is here, but I don't know, Caroline is here, but to me was really fantastic. Why? Because I was the only man. I mean, and I was accepted to participate after the other attendants decide. Only women, 5 women, and Caroline. Among the participants, I remember that was Sandra Follner and another excellent qualitative also ethnographers now. I remember Sandra Follner because it was very young, no? We learned from the book, the Ethnographic Eye, a methodological novel about the autoethnography. And we read that book because it was only published, I mean, very recent, published in those days. But before attending that workshop, Bob, I thought that ethnography was a kind of imperialist strategy to generate useful knowledge about places, processes, action, cultures, which the ethnographer did not have the courage to access. For these imperialist researchers, American researchers, it was better to train, I was thinking, that, like other Latin American guys, that for these American researchers, it was better to train natives of those dangerous or unattainable or difficult cultures in ethnographic methods so that they could write from their experience. I mean, the native people to get published the analysis, right? But please, it is not difficult to imagine that that autoethnography was the autoethnography was suspicious for the Latin American researchers trained in Marxism. I mean, for the Marxist way of thinking, autoethnography was like a gun, right? Like an instrument of the American imperialism. Uh, before I went to that workshop, I can remember that was also kind of, of suspicion, right? But everything changed after that workshop. I was able to assess in detail the effort to build both a methodology to overcome the gaps that separate individual internal experience and social processes, the effort to integrate the macro into the macro into the micro, and vice versa. I'm still seeing autoethnography now as a magnificent result of the symbolic interaction. It's
Mm.
obviously in connection to phenomenological and narrative legacies. How can I say this? Uh, please, please, when I'm thinking on autoethnography as a mixture of symbolic interactionist legacies and phenomenological and narrative legacies, is because from my way of thinking, uh, Alfred Schutz Alfred Schutz is still very important. And I ask you, or I suggest to you, don't forget that when Alfred Schutz arrived to America to teach in the new school of social science in New York, and he came to America because of the Nazi persecution. Alfred Schultz regret that he was not able to meet George Herbert's need. And I think at least that this my perspective on how the autoethnography is doing, and even because of this was for me also kind of epiphany, as you said, or turning point. It's important to recognize this mixture, no?
Well, you've come quite a ways, as many of your generation have, from quantitative sort of orientation all the way through to a better understanding of autoethnography, and you know your work with Germany and the German language, and seeing some of the qualitative work being done there in sort of in concert with as you said, you know, with the French sort of qualitative, is really puts a nice interesting kind of, you have a lot of different kinds of backgrounds that feed into this your orientation towards qualitative research. I think that's fascinating, and it gives you a unique voice in a lot of ways. Um, but let's turn to something. Let's turn to your, I don't want to call it an epiphany because that's overused, I guess, in this conversation, but your eureka moments, your discovery of this idea of creative subversion. Can you tell us about that, about
Yeah.
how you came to begin talking about creative subversion?
Oh, thank you, Bob. I appreciate your question because I remember that you were with me doing some workshops on ethnography and creative subversions in Urbana-Champaign. But you know, let me do a confession. It's a confession. Uh, when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a musician. You know, I wanted to be a musician, but my father was against that idea. No, but probably like in other families, in other countries, the our parents said no, but this is, if you want to be musician and study formally music, you will be a poor guy with no job at all or something. No? But despite
What was your motivation to become a musician?
because I like music and
Uh-huh.
and I start to play my guitar when I was 9 years old. So my first guitar was on me when I was that age, and I love the sound. I mean, I'm still love music, you know? But let me say that the practice of music never left me. It never left me. Uh, I remember that in the 90s, last century, I began to have contact with research, some good people who was researching on the role of rhythm and melody in political protest demonstrations. I mean, in that way, I mean, the connection between music and protest. And I think that was definite to me because my interest in what we can call music of subversion or musical subversion, or how the subversion is musical, grew, and then I integrate the participation of performance, theater, painting, and other artistic manifestation. A kind of ethnography of political movements in the public space was like my major or something. But you know, around 20 years ago, a very good Greek colleague of mine, Christy Petropoulos, who is a geographer, and we have been working together. I mean, I went to Greece several times, and she came to Mexico several times. But remember, now I'm living in Chile. But Christy introduced me to the study of what she calls the poetics of rage, you know, and the poetics of rage to be able to get some interpretation of what was going on the social movement. And I think that this idea of, but the poetics, and even the Greek word for poetic, that is the and the antonymus of praxis versus po, poiesis, praxis versus poiesis, is very interesting, very interesting. But along with this idea of the poiesis of the rage, yeah, a Swiss colleague of mine, Francis Muller, introduced me to the study of the subversive materiality in the sense of discovering how some objects, any object, change, transform, or acquire a new meaning given by the user when used in the protest. No, and I start to study that. I mean, in any political manifestation, I was studying the the materiality of the objects, the actions, no, the connection, the materiality, and then for me was the starting point, if you like, to decide that necessity, a theoretical necessity of creative subversion was urgent, no? And that happened, and I'm still in that. I mean, the creative subversion is for me in any resistance. Could be individual, personal, or collective resistance. And I can talk a little bit more on this, Bob.
Um, okay. Um, you stopped very quickly, so I'm sort of stunned for a second. Hang on till I get the deer out of my headlights. Um, so So you've also been involved with technology.
Mhm.
Could you talk a little bit about how you see the use of technology, and how it might hinder and or assist ethnographic and or autoethnographic and I mean certainly qualitative work?
Mm,
This
mm,
is a major shift
yeah,
from the but it's all integrated within you.
yeah, yeah. It's different, but I mean, I remember that Ray Mayera, but also another friends of us from UK connected to the CAQDAS project and so on, said or used to say something like, "Oh, we started to be present in the qualitative research community because of the use of technology. But then at some point we said, now that is enough, and we want to move to another field, right? Because it's true. I mean, I started working with technological resources linked to qualitative research at the end of the last millennium. I remember my first connection with qualitative software developers was amazing. It led me to travel a lot, Bob. I mean, being a Mexican guy, no, a Mexican unknown professor, was amazing because it led me to travel a lot. I travel a lot. I mean, I was going to Australia, I was going to Germany twice a year, and then going to US or to Austria. I remember to Austria as well. No, my friends in those days used to tell me something like, "Wow, Cesar, you are so crazy. We cannot understand what you are doing, but you are playing now in the first league." They said, no, doing some sarcastic stuff, no. uh, because I was traveling a lot in the last decade of the last century, because I was going to talk with the developers, but also to receive some training. But let me tell you that my first interest on the qualitative software was to analyze social discourse and everyday narratives. I mean, I was studying in phenomenological way, trying to integrate also grounded theory methodology, no, and all this stuff, uh, because I was trying to understand. I mean, to get the understanding of the structure of people's everyday speech and talking interaction. I mean, that was my focus, no. And I was reading a lot about this, no. And I remember, Bob, that in some ways, the natural language processing and computational linguistics was also kind of fields that were around me for a long time. No, now I mean I can say like around 30 years later, the technological resources linked to qualitative research uh, are going to another stuff, right? I mean, are going to different places, no, and are generating different polemical debates, no. For instance, the artificial intelligence stuff, no. I mean, even though bloggers, I mean, I can remember even some colleagues who start to do some diffusion, some communication in blogs, and some of them were creatively applying some technological resources to create autoethnographical stories or autoethnographical materials, no? I remember also, for instance, different authors who developed visual ethnographies of vulnerable population, addicts, homeless, and so on. No, I think that technology more than hinder can assist to develop different kind of ethnographies. But at least for me, all these resources, just for instance, in the way that artificial intelligence is doing now, no, I'm skeptical about the use of that, but like are connected to the discussion about creative creative ways of doing something, or even in the connection with innovation, creating new ways of doing something. I think that we need to be very aware about this, even to decide if for instance, this community of autoethnographers, I know that some of them are using different resources, right? Just for instance, movies or digital strategies to create something, no, or even just in the way that I was thinking yesterday. Like I know that we have people doing computational ethnography, and this computational ethnography is very promising, and is a new emerging field of research. Different people has been publishing, for instance, on cognitive informatics, or handbooks of anthropology of technology, or they are publishing in journals as Big Data and Society, or even in ethnography, or in social science, computer review. We have lots of different papers on that. For thinking also in what you asked me, Bob, one lesson from the pandemic, I think that one lesson from the pandemic that was that it showed us the usefulness of the hybrid ethnography, right? I mean, doing uh, hybrid methodologies, right? Hybrid ethnography, no? And I remember this lady, Liz Prisbilski, among other colleagues, no? So I think, Bob, that the technology is important in different ways. It's a good resources. It's a good resource. It is contain a wonderful resources at some point. I know that, well, for me, I remember that when Kip Jones passed away. Kip Jones was um, a colleague from UK that was working very hard in performative social science, and he found a good place in the web to visually communicate some some good qualitative research that he was doing. No, Kip Jones, for instance, was very uh, avant-garde, no, using this, because, for instance, in 2004, I mean, 2004, look at that, 20 years ago, he was pioneering on biographic narrative studies, no, using uh, some web resources, right? And I mean,
Performance.
exactly. In very performative ways, Arthur. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I remember the idea of think on Mary Gergen, no, as a postmodern lady, no, who can recreate the social atmosphere, the old her life and everything, no. So when I'm calling the attention of you about, for instance, how different qualitative software is integrating ChatGPT to summarize data or generate text, I have to say that I must to say I should say that I'm very skeptical about the future of this. Very skeptical. Even I'm because of my age. When I'm teaching something related to this, I said to the young people, please don't trust in all of this because it's a resource, but with some limitation, right? With different limitation. Creative writing is a human activity. Let me say in that way. No, creative writing is very human activity. Or even just to say in how Noam Chomsky, this political linguistics guy, said this is not intelligence at all. No, it's artificial, but it's not intelligence at all. No. So, but if your question about this is connected to how we can think the use of technology to develop autoethnographic research, this is what can I say, dear Bob?
Well,
You say skeptical. I say frightening.
Yeah, exactly, right. Thank you. We are totally agree.
I think we've forgotten that these sorts of things are tools,
Our
and
tools, yeah.
they're supposed to assist us rather than, you know, program us or guide us or, you know, become the thing that we worship. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't, well, go to poetry. You were talking about creative subversion, and subversive art and subversive music, and those kinds of things come from the next question I have, which is, what role does passion have? What role does passion have in ethnography and autoethnography?
Mm,
Passion. That's not an
yes,
artificial intelligent kind of characteristic, is it?
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I mean, passion now, ethnography. Okay. Um, how can I, I mean, just like I said before, Bob, I'm still working around the links between creativity, race, social change, resistance, social movement, protest, no? Now, I mean, currently I'm working on the base in political rhetoric, no? I mean, and the rise of the conservative right. No, I do so based on Bakhtin legacy to explore multivocality, and one of my basic concerns is to try to organize critical thinking on to deconstruct the foundation of reactionary populism.
Have
I'm
you
not.
mentioned have you mentioned that you're living in Chile?
I'm living in Chile now.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I'm living in Chile now. But
That
but
might
I mean,
that might be, you know.
yeah, exactly. I know, but I mean, here is Argentina. I mean, Trump is. I mean, we know what we are talking about when we say how is the new right becoming dominant. No, I mean, but I'm not sure how it is possible to integrate autoethnographic efforts, methods, and approach into this project to dismantle the entire ideological apparatus that supports conservative thought on a large scale. But I mean, I believe, Bob, that it is not just about discourse on vulnerability, otherness, marginalization, exclusion, or stigmatization. I understand that the polarization of the modern world is leading us to a destruction of previous civilizational processes. It is like a new crossroads of the modern world. To be honest, I probably, and you know of me, all of you know about me, I have writing very little autoethnographically. In fact, none of my articles have that word in the title. Also, I must must admit that I have done in English. I must admit that what I have done in English does have an air of interactionist inspiration very similar to the autoethnographic effort. An example, let me give you an example. Even to think about passion, no? Because, some, I'm sorry, just some days ago, I received a message from the guy that I will talk about, and I was so happy just to read him twice his message. My examples. Bill Rawlins, I know that some of you know William Rawlins. This a drummer, who I met in Urbana-Champaign. Well, Bill Rawlins and I organized a couple of performances in which we linked musical creativity and ethnography to raise participant awareness of the role that music, lyric, and poetics play when creating ethnographically significant words. I have wonderful memories of Bill. We present in Urbana-Champaign one of these performances, and once, but then in how it's called this, Canarian Islands. We went to Canarian Islands to do the same in different version. But we show how Manu Chao and Willie Colon, that both in Spanish, no? Manu Chao with Clandestino, and Billy Colon with El Gran Barón. These are the names of the songs. How we show how Manu Chao and Willie Colon made important contribution to the understanding of complex social processes such as illegal migration, and HIV, respectively. So, when you ask me, Bob, about passion first in ethnography, and then in autoethnography, I said, to me, passion can be present when you are doing revenge autoethnography. Even when you are doing evocative autoethnography, you are also putting your passion. But for instance, when I was thinking on your question, Bob, I remember that just because my interest in social movements and all this stuff that I have been doing for long, and even because my ideas on creative subversion, that is leading me to recognize different people around the world doing the same with different names, And I was thinking, and how probably some of you have been doing, or probably some of you have not find the word to talk about, but I think that militant autoethnography is a good word to define when you are working with passion. When you are working with passion in what you are doing, right? I don't know if this is a right word to talk about the activities that you are doing, but just to give you another example, I remember that the surrealism was a kind of militant subversion on the quotidian, right? On the everyday life. Changing everything. The life is in another place, for instance. No, so I think that passion is like how can I say it? Like an essence of autoethnography.
I think it's an interesting appropriation of the word militant, like a lot of groups have appropriated the words that have been used against them. So you take militancy, which is from a warlike attitude, which is, you know, the whole idea of the avant-garde as well. And
Okay.
you use it for creative purposes. I think it's a good word. I like it.
I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's something.
Into that, and it would be a really interesting discussion.
I'm not sure, but you know, let me try to put an example. I mean, when I'm hearing trans person who is talking autoethnographically, no, it's exactly it's a militant of that difference. When I'm listening a people from very vulnerable population, no, who is doing what he's doing or she's doing. This is a militant of that part of the movement. Probably, I mean, I'm not sure if that word caused some incommodity, you know, to the people, because it's like a militant is very connected to partisan or to political parties or something. But I think that when we are doing collective efforts, not to change something, no, to put in words our experience, no, poetically or in prosaic way or whatever, no, is, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm just trying to put something.
I think it's worth exploring. I think, you know, I think the word queer has been reappropriated. I think the
Yeah.
word girl has been reappropriated. The word bitch has been reappropriated. Different groups that, you know, have been, that the words have been used as weapons against them,
Yeah,
have
exactly.
had those words turned back around on them,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
Bob,
Yeah.
I saw that Ricardo wanted to make a comment or
I'm
ask a
sorry.
question. Ricardo, do you still want to comment?
Yes, thank you. It's because you talk about music, and I have a question about that. How do you believe autoethnography can impact music education, particularly in terms of teaching and learning about the cultural and social aspect of music?
Okay, I can hear very clearly, Ricardo, but I mean, you know, like we all have music in our body, right? I mean, uh, music is in our breath, music is in our way of eating or whatever. So I remember when I'm thinking on rhythm, the rhythm of our voice, or even, how can I say, the the resonance, Ricardo, of our health, or how some words are causing more harm than others, or how some sounds, for instance, let me put in that way. And I remember now that Bob said, okay, now it's because I'm living in Chile. I don't know where you are from, Ricardo, but let me say that, for instance, now that I'm living in Chile, when I'm talking with people who is survivor of the terror of the dictatorship, you know that some sounds, some sounds, even sounds that are not relevant for you, are creating some response to them, no? and that musicality of the terror is something like, oh, if you can ask or even collaborate with these ladies or with these gentlemen to write about how this connection, no, I mean, I know that to say that musicality of the terror is something like, oh, look at that, what are you saying? But it's something like the harmony, the rhythm, the melody, or even I mean, I mentioned the three parts of the music, right? Rhythm, melody, and harmony. But remember that we have not just these three elements. We have also silence. And when we think in silence as well, it's something like, oh, look at that. And if I like what you are asking me, Ricardo, and I appreciate that because I mean, it brings me to think about that. It's like when I have to reconciliate my my who I am as a frustrated musician and who I am as a frustrated qualitative inquirer, something like that, is like okay, I have to combine two, right? And that is the way that I'm doing.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a word about that workshop and also about listening to your history in sociology. It was really nice to hear about all those folks who also had, a lot of influence on me as well.
Okay.
But that workshop, you said 2004, that is about when it was, I think.
Yeah.
It was amazing to have César in that workshop. He he was so brave and so vulnerable, and just joined in, even though English was his second language, and we were talking about writing in English and emotionality, and he came from a very political macro perspective, and we were kind of down in the emotion micro aspects of social interaction, and he just hung in there and contributed and asked a lot of questions and challenged us, but was just a full and wonderful participant in that workshop, and I will never forget it. It was just quite an experience.
Thanks. I remember also in very touching way, and Caroline, I think I never told you, but I have not published even in English or Spanish my essay, but just to give one example
We have
to
1 minute.
1 minute. Let me tell you what I discovered in that workshop. When I was reading my essay in English, I was strong, very clear. But Bob, one of the wonderful experience that I got, and I'm sure that Caroline remember very well, when she asked me, "Hey, guy, can you read it in Spanish? Can you say that in Spanish?" And
I
you know what
remember.
happened?
Yeah.
You know what happened to me? I couldn't.
Okay.
And I said, I remember that Wittgenstein idea that the limits of your world are the limits of your language. It's or something like
Okay.
that, no? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
We have
Well,
to
thank
be
you.
respectful to the next group coming in. So
Yeah,
thank you, César. Thank
my
you all
pleasure.
for
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Bob. Lovely to see you. Go have
Lovely
your
to see you.
coffee.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, César. Lovely.
Bye, Caroline. See you. Bye, Bob. Bye, everyone. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.